We'll go ahead and get started here. So welcome to the information session, everyone. My name is Raj Iqbal. I'm one of the lead instructors and chief data scientist at Data Science Dojo. I'm going to be talking about the Large Language Models Bootcamp that we have and also the Agentic AI Bootcamp that we recently launched. And I will explain what is the difference between the two. I've been doing machine learning, data science, AI, analytics, give it any name that you like. I've been doing this for quite some time. Have been building models, building machine learning models, building agentic AI lately. Very recently, we have products that we have built. I mean, we have a training side of it. We are not purely a training company. We also provide services, and we have a product being used by big enterprises globally. And that is a practical experience. When we teach, that practical experience actually comes in our curriculum, in how we teach any topic. One of the oldest companies on the planet when it comes to machine learning, AI, analytics, anything under the sun in that space, more than 11,000 people who have graduated from our programs. And I'm talking about not self-paced programs, even though we do have some self-paced learning. But primarily, these 11,000 graduates, these are our face-to-face synchronous learning graduates. Lots of companies and pretty much any country in the planet has been represented in one of our trainings. So why did we decide to start this boot camp? We are the first boot camp in industry. Even now, there's no 40-hour boot camp. I mean, there's like 2-hour boot camps out there, 3-hour, 4-hour boot camps, but really boot camp should be a boot camp, like a military boot camp. So why did we start this boot camp? I mean, we are the first one in industry, and we happen to be, the highest quality boot camp out there. But I mean, why did we start this boot camp? It turns out that many companies, enterprises, when they start building LLM applications, they realize that building an agent or building maybe some kind of custom GPT model in Chat GPT, well, it seems quite straightforward, but when you start to build an application and try to deploy it and operationalize for a customer in healthcare, in cloud computing, in finance, in retail, there is a lot of challenges that you would run into. The first and foremost challenge is that prompts are going to be brittle. The same model, even the shiniest models, when you deploy them, uh, um, a slightly different variation of a prompt can actually result in substantially different results. Then there are, your application may be an application that requires low latency versus higher latency. Then hallucination, if you are here in this information session, likely you're familiar with what hallucination means. LLMs can have a mind of their own. They might actually give you a response that may not be factually correct, or even if it is factually correct, it may not actually be relevant to the information that they were given at hand. Then the cost aspect of it, right? So it may look like ChatGPT may make it look like that these systems are inexpensive. Gemini is there, Anthropic is there. There's a lot of applications that are out there. But in reality, when you start to adopt these applications in your enterprise, well, costs go out of hand very, very quickly. After all of this, let's say cost is okay. I mean, you have the budgets and you have everything under control. The application is working very well. But what about the data governance? What if you index the wrong information, or what if you index the information without proper data governance and access and authorization controls in place. There is a lot of challenges when you start building an application like this. The scaling aspect becomes a challenge. Regulatory challenges are there. Guardrails become a problem. Anyone can make these applications say whatever they want them to say. Initially, there are some guardrails that are there in place, but you have to have some organizational guardrails in place. So many different things are possible. We realized that starting with a POC is very easy. Many companies that came to us, they had called them, I call it the graveyard of POCs. So many companies that started building these applications, they realized that well, it's not as easy as it may sound. You start with a very cool application, but when you try to operationalize it, when you try to productionize it, start to give it to your customers, when you start to give it to your employees, there are challenges. There are a lot of barriers to adoption. And that led us to really, well, launch this bootcamp. So we became a product company. We have been a training company. We started building agentic AI products. And then we said, yeah, I mean, why don't we add one more training to our portfolio? Because, I mean, we have enough experience building these systems that we can actually teach other people how to build these systems from scratch. So the topics that we cover are in depth. We go in all the topics in depth. I will show you in our learning platform what kind of content we have. But we start with embeddings and transformers and attention mechanism. We go dive deep, practical exercises, vector databases. You will understand all the ideas behind vector databases. I will actually show some of these in our learning platform so you can get a better sense. LangChain and agentic workflows. How do you connect your LLM application to a Dropbox or a SharePoint or a Salesforce or really any of the data sources? How do you chunk your documents? How do you use Gemini model? How do you use OpenAI models or versus GPT-4, GPT 4.0 or 4.1? How do you use Llama model? How do you connect your application to a search engine? How do you build an agent? How do you build that reasoning within your LLM application? So we talk about all of that. We talk about observability and monitoring in detail. Guardrails. How do you implement guardrails? Ethical guardrails, topical guardrails. Any kind of legal issues. Harassment, bias. How do you actually prevent your models to actually act in a manner that can get you in trouble? I mean, lately we have started seeing things that are in news, like Air Canada getting sued by a passenger because the chatbot told the passenger certain things that were not factually correct, and the court ruled in favor of a customer. And recently, actually last week, I was looking at this news article that now insurance companies, they have started offering insurance against any chatbot lawsuit, right? So you have a chatbot on your website, and if you get sued, then the insurance your insurance policy will kick in. We talk in detail about evaluation, just like for those of you coming from a traditional machine learning background. How do you evaluate your model? How do you evaluate the correctness of the model? How do you evaluate the correctness of the answer, relevance of the answer to your question? How do you make sure that it does not have anything inappropriate? How do you set up that benchmark? Deployment or ops, we talk in detail. Fine tuning, you take a model. A model has been trained to work well on the data set that they were trained on. But what if you have a very specific data set that was not used for training the model? How do you fine tune the model on your own enterprise data set? We have the theory and practice of all of them. And then how do you build, what are the challenges that you run into while building up these LLM applications? And what are the product management challenges that you will run into? So we have two distinct products. The LLM Bootcamp is a 5-day, 40-hour intensive program. It is offered both in class and instructor-led online. It can be, you can attend it synchronously from wherever you are, or you can attend this boot camp in person in Seattle. So it is primarily geared towards absolute beginners. So if you're an absolute beginner, you don't know what transformers are, you don't know what attention mechanism encoder decoder is, and you want to start from scratch, right? So this is the boot camp you want to attend. And I will show you once again, I will go to the curriculum. I will show you a few things in a bit, actual exercises. How does the learning platform and the course material look like? The Agentic AI Bootcamp. This bootcamp is more of call it a slightly advanced version of the LLM bootcamp. And so we do cover some topics that are covered in the LLM bootcamp, but some of the fundamentals, they are not covered in class. We expect the attendees to actually know some of the foundations. I mean, if they should already understand how an LLM works, or what is an embedding and what is a transformer, etc. But for anyone who does not have the right background, if they want to come in, and then we can give them self-paced material, and they can actually go through that remedial material before they actually come to the training. But we take a deeper dive into building AI agents. We do talk about AI agents in the LLM bootcamp, but we take a more coding intensive, deeper dive in building those agentic architectures. We have different kind of agentic architectures that we will dive into. How do you do state management in an agentic framework? There are different kind of design patterns that we will be covering in this bootcamp, and I will explain that in a bit. So when you look at an application, I will go through this very quickly because I have to go and talk about the course material. I have to show you the actual course material. So at the core of an LLM application is your LLM, whether you are accessing it through directly on-prem. It could be on your laptop. It could be on your desktop. It could be somewhere in a VM in your cloud. It can also be an API that you're using. And now, this is how it is deployed, but it could be a open source or closed source model. Example of open source is Llama and Llama 2 model, for instance, right? Mistral Llama 2 or Llama 3, 4, those models, Llama series models. And the examples of closed source would be OpenAI and Anthropic, right? So we do touch upon, mainly we focus on Llama and OpenAI because we have to focus one open source and one closed source, but fundamentals remain the same. Once you know it and on one platform, you know it on other platforms. Most of the LLM applications in enterprise, very likely, I would say in majority of the cases, you're going to end up building a RAG application, which is a retrieval augmented generation application. So when you build a retrieval augmented generation application, a vector database is going to be at the core of it, or call it the context. The context is going to be at the core of it. And whether you're receiving that context from using from a Salesforce, from a dynamic CRM, or from a web search, or from a SQL server, or your MySQL, right? So, or a Postgres, right? So the context is, think of that as your data that augments your LLM. LLMs can actually act pretty dumb. I mean, alone, if you talk to an LLM can be actually quite dumb. An example would be is if you asked a GPT-4o model, a GPT-4.1, state-of-the-art model, right? So if you go and ask them, who's the president of the United States at the moment, You might get a response like, "Hey, my knowledge is limited to October of 2023 or October of 2024, and as of that date, Joe Biden was the president of United States." Something along those lines. And there's this common confusion, right? So no. I mean, when I go to ChatGPT, ChatGPT knows everything. ChatGPT is not your LLM. ChatGPT is an application built on LLM, on a foundation LLM. So what we will teach you is how do you build a robust application like ChatGPT on top of an open source or a closed source model. So how do you add that context? So to add that context, a vector database is going to be at the heart of it, right? So you need a vector database at the heart of it, right? So, and we talk about all the fundamentals, and I keep saying this. I will show you some exercises that will actually clarify. I mean, how do you actually, how are we going to teach this? Then a vector database can store, it can build a keyword index. We'll talk about those keyword indexes. How do you build keyword indexes and, your classic BM25, TF-IDF type indexes. And then also your semantic search index, where you need an embedding model. We'll talk about all about embeddings in detail. How do you create embeddings? What does embeddings even mean? Then you need frameworks like LangChain or Llama Index. We'll talk about LangChain in a lot of detail, like in great depth, actually. We spend about 8 to 10 hours just on LangChain out of 40 hours in this LLM bootcamp. So then there is observability. We actually have this whole discussion on observability. We have a discussion around guardrails, deployment, all of that. So we cover pretty much the entire ecosystem. So after 40 hours, when our attendees, our learners, when they leave, they are actually able to build an end-to-end LLM application. I will show you what this entire course might look like for you. So when we sign up, when our learners sign up, they are given access to this learning platform. Once again, this is not a self-paced course, but to make our interactive instructor-led course more efficient, we have resources that are already set up, right? So these are, broadly speaking, the modules that we have separated them out as courses. So we start with a high-level introduction, right? What does it mean to build an LLM application? Well, why does an LLM, how is an LLM built? Just the core foundation model. How is it built? What is prompt engineering? What are the risks and challenges when you're building an LLM application in enterprise? We talk about all of that. We talk about the end-to-end architecture just to give, we set that breadth of the entire ecosystem in about 3 hours on the first day. The first 3 hours are setting you up with a broad understanding of the breadth of topics. Then we start taking a deep dive into each of the components that we have understood in breadth. So we start with this transformers and attention mechanism. We go deep into this topic. We have Luis Serrano. He is the instructor for this particular module. We talk about start with an introduction to very quickly AI, deep learning, neural networks. I mean, how does this feed forward and all of those layers? How do they work? We talk about the attention mechanism, encoder-decoder architecture, and so on. We talk about all of that. Then we go into do a quick exercise in prompt engineering at a very high level, because prompt engineering is something that we will continue to go back to as we actually keep learning. So I will double click on this one of the modules, let's say a practical introduction to vector databases. So when we go inside, so a typical course may look like this. We have all the setup guides. How do you set up a vector database server? How do you set up your remote desktop? And we have all the guidelines, everything is set up here. Then we go and let me show you what we have here. So for instance, the way we start is, so we spent about 5 to 6 hours, 5.5 hours on vector databases. So we start with the foundations. We spend about 2.5 hours, half of the time we spend this time on explaining the theory part of it. Well, why do you need a vector database? And what is a vector database? How is it different from a SQL database, for instance, or a NoSQL database, for instance? And then we start building our momentum. And if you look at this, this is how an embedding is. An embedding is in a vector space. How do you do a vector search? So we keep talking about these topics. What does a vector search look like? What kind of searches can you perform in a vector database? You can do a vector search. You can have a pure vector search. You can have a pure keyword search, or you can have a hybrid search that actually does a vector search and also does a keyword search and does some sort of applies some sort of re-ranking on the final results, and then gives a more, I would say, more robust results, as opposed to only purely focusing on either keyword or semantic search. Then there is, your where and having and other clauses that you have in your SQL database. Then you have this faceting and filtering also possible. We talk about all of those topics. We also talk about what is it, what data structures and what techniques are used that make these vector databases capable of um, returning in maybe 10 to 20, 30, 40 millisecond out of, you have hundreds of millions of embeddings, and now you're searching for something, and then within a few milliseconds, you actually find the right piece of text or right document. How do they do it? So we talk about all of it. And of course, I cannot go through the entire thing, but you can see that we are explaining step by step, piece by piece. We are explaining everything here. And once you understand all of this, we go to practical exercises, and we will go to, for instance, we will explain, we have a vector search practical exercise. Then we have a similarity search exercise. We have a hybrid search exercise, and so on. And what we have done here is we have preloaded these exercises in our sandboxes. And the way this works is, if you look at this, I've clicked on this here, and now when I click on this, that code is auto-populated in your web browser. And if you notice in the URL, this is my dedicated space. So just like, I mean, all learners, they will have their own dedicated space. So if you make any changes to the code, they are persistent. You can actually copy and paste, make changes to the code, maybe do something else, all of that. So this is included in when you sign up, you have access to these sandboxes for 1 year after the bootcamp. So this is an example of hybrid search. We go through this. We show you how to create a VV8 URL. These keys won't work. These have been disabled. So just in case anyone is drooling here. So, so we give you all these keys, and we enable you. We give you your own vector database. You go and create, a vector database in the cloud. We have a partnership with VV8, so we'll give you all the resources that you need. Then we'll give you open AI API keys. And then you will set these up, explain, run. Okay, what is this? Well, this is a table equivalent of, in a SQL world, we call it a collection here. So what am I doing here? I'm setting this up with text embedding 3 large. How do I use the small embedding model? How do you use an ADA embedding model? Or how do you use a Llama embedding model? Well, we talk about all of that. Well, in this case, I'm vectorizing some properties and not vectorizing other properties. What does that mean? I'm importing my data. And then if you look at this, I'm doing a hybrid search. If alpha is 0, then it makes it purely a keyword search. If alpha is 1, it makes it a pure vector search. If we set it to 0 0.5, then it's partly vector and um, partly semantic search. I see, Jad, you have a question. I don't think we can enable audio, but I mean, feel free to type your question in chat, and it will be in chat or in Q&A, and it will be routed to me. Or I can see it, actually. So, Jad, please feel free to type your question, and I'm going to actually look at it. Okay. And then while the question comes up, I am going to continue. So now there is this, in this case, so we changed different variations. For instance, this is, let's say I'm searching for Cobra, but Cobra was never mentioned in any of the documents. This keyword did not exist. Well, a rattlesnake was there. So semantically, if I do a pure semantic search, well, Cobra would be a match to the rattlesnake document. But if I do a pure keyword search, well, this word was never mentioned, and you will see an empty result that came back. If you do a hybrid search, it's partly vector, partly semantic, and partly keyword. So we get the best of both worlds. Yeah, so we go through this just like I'm explaining. Of course, it's not going to be as rushed of an introduction as you see right now. But how do you filter? How do you facet your data, and so on? Okay, so Crispin, your question is, how does GraphRag fit into the mix? So we actually do have a session on GraphRag as well. And so the question is, how does GraphRag come into picture? So, and I'm assuming, Crispin, you are familiar with knowledge graphs, and that's why you're asking this question. So GraphRag actually, LLMs are actually, I mean, as I said earlier, I mean, many of us already know about what does hallucination mean in the context of LLMs. Uh, if you have a knowledge graph, right? So if you have a knowledge graph of all the relationships between entities, chances are that your model, even if it is misled by some text, actually being in close proximity of each other. I'm trying to come up with a good example. You know, it could be Space Needle. Well, an LLM is not going to mess up on a Space Needle, but a Space Needle is in Seattle, right? So maybe I have a uh, for some reason, my model actually got confused because of a lot of text being there. It confused Space Needle, that is a building, a monument in Seattle. It confused it with, well, a needle in space. I'm totally made up example. I know it's not nonsensical, but, well, and that's how it is. Or a better example, actually, Sleepless in Seattle, right? So Sleepless in Seattle, right? So well, Sleepless in Seattle is a movie, and Sleepless in Seattle, I have a knowledge graph. It is Sleepless in Seattle is a movie, and I don't know who the director was, but Tom Hanks was there. But when somehow, my model hallucinated because Sleepless in Seattle, somehow it is confusing it with sleeplessness. Now, what knowledge graphs do is they actually step in and guide your LLM generation in the right direction. So this entity relationships, they make sure that if the model is getting confused, they ensure that knowledge graph actually, or graph rag, it actually ensures that your generation actually stays on track. And we talk about these topics actually. So in the bootcamp, we have a session by Adam Cowley from Neo4j. He actually talks about GraphRag. So we do cover that too. I hope, Crispin, I did answer your question. If not, please let me know. Okay. So if you look at this, once we have finished our hybrid search, we'll go to generative search. And generative search, call it poor person's RAG. I mean, this is the very, very basic RAG where we show or retrieval augmented generation, where we show that we have a bunch of documents in our vector database, and then we are generating. This example is based on some documents in vector database. We are generating Facebook ads. So we first retrieve and then generate, right? And that's it, right? So if you look at this, just a very basic example, we are building this momentum slowly and gradually, and then and building things as we understand one topic. Now, what do we do? Now, what we do? For instance, right after all of this, we go vector compression. Why would you need vector compression? Um, In vector compression, think about this. Let's say, I'm DoorDash, or I am Uber Eats, or I am a company that is somewhat at working and scale. I may potentially have hundreds of millions and possibly maybe billions of embeddings. And once you have these embeddings, the billions of embeddings, so compute and storage and compute and retrieval, it becomes inaccurate and also time consuming. Okay, let me see. There's a Q&A. Okay. Okay, I will answer. There's a question about, do you get into MCP? I will address that question in just a moment. So we talk about vector compression. Well, why do you need vector compression, and how do you do vector compression, right? So this using PQ, product quantization. So all of this, once again, you can see, it's not yeah, we'll do it, we have it, right? So you can see that these are some vector compression exercises. And you can see you're performing a vector search, and now enable PQ by updating the collection config, right? So basically what I'm saying is, we'll talk about it. How do you do vector compression? Why do you need vector compression? And so on. So we'll do it. And semantic caching, sometimes you, if especially when it's a support-like scenario, when the question has always the same answer, there is no personalization, the question is not situational, it doesn't change based on context. For instance, what is the capital of France, or where is Space Needle located? So these kind of questions, or maybe how do I install SharePoint on a Windows or on a Windows server? It's some questions that have a very clear, concrete answers. We don't have to generate again. We can go get by with semantic caching. So those kind of things, we have this idea of semantic caching. We save on token cost, we save on GPU costs, and these are some architectural optimizations that we go for. So before I continue and talk about more of these modules, I'm going to actually address a question. Do we get into MCP? Yes, we will talk about MCP, but when you say get into MCP, to what level of detail? We get into MCP in a greater detail in our Agentic AI Bootcamp, but we definitely give enough context in our LLM Bootcamp. So once again, as I said, LLM Bootcamp is more for, it's a bit more beginner friendly. Even if you're not a coder, you will do fine. But the more of practical exercises and more of the detail and some of the nuanced aspects of it, they are covered in the Agentic AI Bootcamp. I want to be very clear. People have attended our Large Language Models Bootcamp. They came in as beginners. When they went back, they were able to actually build things, right? But some of the more nuanced, some of the more intricate design patterns and more advanced topics. You want to learn advanced jobs in agentic AI or agentic AI applications. For that, we have agentic AI bootcamp. But otherwise, if you're a beginner, LLM bootcamp will actually get you there too. So you will be fine. LangChain. LangChain is, think of this as one of the most important tools that you will need. in building an end-to-end application. Well, does it have to be LangChain? No. I mean, you can use Llama Index. Llama Index is another one. Okay, Lalita, you cannot see the screen share for some reason. Can others see my screen? Can someone, just one person can confirm if my screen is visible? Okay, thank you so much, Cassie. Lalita, if you can double check, I mean, maybe it's an issue on your end. So LangChain actually helps you build end-to-end LLM applications. So, we start with really, why do you need LangChain? How do you hook up different kind of language models? How do you connect to different kind of chat models? How do you set up prompt templates? And of course, I cannot show you every single exercise here. I will click on things here and there randomly. How do you set up prompt templates? So we talk about, why do you need prompt templates? Well, you want your prompt to be dynamic, right? So you cannot have your prompts that are very, very fixed. So we go and talk about, prompt templates and how do you set up a prompt template? If you look at this, I imported this LangChain library called prompt template. Started with this, will give you the OpenAI API key. You will enter the OpenAI API key. And then if you look at this, location is, we are slowly, we'll slowly but surely, we'll get there. So start with the very basic prompt template. So location, and then whatever the user enters on screen, it just goes and plugs it in, right? So that's what LangChain does. And then I have this, this dynamic behavior of my LLM application. Then we go to example selectors. How do you give it few short examples? Spiros, the code, where can we find? This is on our learning platform, and a lot of code is actually also available in open source. So a lot of, code you can find anywhere, frankly. I mean, having these toy examples, they are out there. Go check out LangChain, examples. Go check out Llama Index examples. So I think the code you can find anywhere. So the question was, where can we find the code? But this particular code, of course, it is behind, our learning platform. It is behind a login. And this, of course, we cannot make it publicly available because whenever someone runs it, there's a cost on our end. We pay for the compute behind the scenes. Retrieval. How do you connect it to different kind of retrievals? So how do you connect your LLM application to Google Search or Google Maps or Yelp or Salesforce or think any data source really. Uh, um, how do you split your text? How do you chunk your data? And then how do you chunk a document? You have a 100-page PDF. How do you break it down? Okay. And how do you break down? How do you split a markdown? How do you split in HTML? So we actually do a few of these exercises. Let me see. I will just click on any of these, for instance, right? So let me click on this. This is a text splitter example. So we talk about this. And in this case, I will very high level, I will say this, we are showing a recursive text splitter. Is that the only kind of text splitter? No, that's not the only kind of text splitter. You can see that there are other types of HTML text splitter and latex. We have this auto suggest installed. So we show you one example, and then after that, you can be on your own. You play around with this, and then, bring in any data, do whatever you want to do. And this is on you. You can just go and keep using it even after the bootcamp. If you look at this, so we take this toy example, there's a text file that we are chunking. You can see that each chunk is 1,000 tokens. There is a chunk overlap. We discuss in detail. People ask, hey, why not 100? Why not a 50? We have that reasoning and discussion. So we make sure that for those of you who will end up at the boot camp, you will see me or hear me saying this a lot. We are not going to give you fish. We are going to teach you how to fish. So we will set up the foundation, we'll teach you, enable you, and after that, you can be on your own because we cannot teach everything that is out there, right? So we are not actually one of those companies that will tell you, hey, you will become an outstanding, top-notch AI engineer right after the boot camp, because a lot of this is your own undertaking. We definitely have the most comprehensive curriculum on the planet. I mean, I'm very confident about it, right? So I'm an educator, I'm an engineer. I can tell you we have I mean, I don't think anyone even comes close to this comprehensiveness of the curriculum that we have. But at the same time, we are also, being an educator, being a practitioner, we know that a lot more is needed that you will actually do on your own. You will have to take your own personal responsibility as well. We talk about chains, we talk about memory. How do you add context to your application? Then we talk about agents, and this is, I'm still in LLM bootcamp. We talk about agents. Something as simple as, how do you actually configure a web search? How do you connect Google search or Bing search or DuckDuckGo search to your LLM application? So if you can see, we are slowly, gradually making our applications more and more complicated, right? So in this case, if you look at this, and we explain all the code, you don't have to worry about, not being well versed in Python. All you have to do is run, run, run. The code is tested completely. All dependencies, all libraries, everything is installed. But even if you're not planning to go back and code, you're a product manager, you're a technical product manager, maybe you're a people's manager, you think that you will be hiring a vendor, still it is worth going through, because there are many things that you will know as a result of the boot camp that you would otherwise not know. So this is a very, very practical experience. And those of you who are hardcore coders, well, go make modifications, bring in leverage other libraries, do make changes to the code, and see what can be done. And you have everything installed here. You're more than welcome to. So in this case, if you look at this, planning an executor and etc., so you do it. Now, multi-agent collaboration, and then RAG agent with LangGraph. And then we talk about LangGraph. LangGraph, think of that as one of the frameworks that is out there for building multi-agent applications. I mean, there is stuff going on in Azure Foundry. Azure Foundry offers it. AWS, Amazon Bedrock, they also offer it. Google has their own thing going. Crew AI, Llama Index, I think all of them, many frameworks are out there. Okay. So there is, let me see, let me handle this question. I think the next question is, when will be the next cohort after June? The next cohort after June is going to be in August. The dates are not confirmed, but somewhere in August, we will have it. So this is an example of LangGraph. In LangGraph, think of this as multiple LLMs. Actually, think of this as a graph where you have and one LLM here, one LLM here, and they are collaborating on solving a problem, right? So, and then you're doing the state management. There is nodes and edges. You're doing state management. You're trying to make sure that, hey, I gave it to this one and I'm waiting, and that LLM comes back and says, I mean, let me give a concrete example, right? So there's a pattern called reflection pattern, where I asked my LLM application, my agent, to write a proposal, and the generator actually generates, and there's a reflection agent that actually takes the output from the generated, or the generator, it takes that output from the generator and sends back the critique to the generator, and the generator actually fixes based on the feedback. It's almost like a peer review type framework. So we talk about all of those things. We go through this in detail. How do you do the state management on all of that? We explain all of this code, what is going on, and so on. Uh, I think we are out of time here, so I'm going to actually rush it through now. Now that by day 2.5 or maybe about 24 hours into the boot camp, now we understand what is uh, a retrieval augmented generation application. We get deeper into what kind of challenges you should expect when you're building a RAG application in an enterprise. Then we will be talking about, LLM observability and guardrails. How do you set up observability? How do you find out how many tokens were used? Which LLM was called? How long did one call take, and so on? And how do you enable guardrails? We talk about fine tuning. In fine tuning, for instance, right? Maybe I can double click here now. So when you in the fine tuning module. I mean, I cannot double click on all of them at a very high level. I will show you here. So we first go through the fine tuning. We set the foundation. Well, what is fine tuning? What is transfer learning? What is, what is distillation? What is knowledge distillation? We talk about all of that. I hope all of you can see it. We explain that, more of the nuances. How are they different? Then we talk about some challenges in fine tuning. We talk about optimization, right? So we explain, this concept of low rank adaptation and quantization and low rank adaptation. We talk about this. If you look at this, and we give really, I mean, what does low rank actually mean? So we make sure that learning has to be enjoyable, right? So, and sometimes when we talking about math ideas, I mean, they should be intuitive, but I mean, somehow along the way, we make them fairly complicated, right? So we make sure that even those who don't like math or have not had good experience with math, they are actually able to understand the topics that we're talking about. So we talk about quantization. What does it mean? Well, it means that we are representing the coefficients of our, we are representing the coefficients. We are the coefficients in a low precision representation. So we talk about explain all of this really, so you exactly understand what does low rank adaptation in fine tuning or quantization, for that matter, QLoRa, which is quantized low rank adaptation. What does that mean? We talk about all of this, explain in quite a bit of detail, and we talk about challenges. And once we do it, we have this exercise where we actually give you a GPU cluster. We give you credit for this GPU cluster. You go and create your own GPU cluster. We give you a piece of code. Where you go and upload the code, and we learn how to fine-tune a Llama 2 7 billion parameter and 4-bit quantized model. We take the unquantized model without quantization, the original model, or I'm sorry, we take the model without fine-tuning. We start with the non-fine-tuned model or the original base model, and we also take then the fine-tuned model, and we compare how their performance is differing. So all hands on, and you have these very interesting revelations that what does fine-tuning entail, and when you fine-tune, what are certain things that you need to be worried about. Once again, no coding background needed. It's again in just like I was showing, run, 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 run. You keep going, 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 going until you basically, you understand what does fine tuning entail. We spend a lot of time on evaluation as well. Maybe this is probably the last module I will double click on. Rest assured that all of these modules, they have similar content. It is just in the interest of time, I cannot actually give you all the possible details that are out there. So in evaluation, we set the context of evaluation. Why do you need evaluation? And what are some of the things that we need to worry about? Why do you need, what kind of challenges you will run into? So for evaluation, you need evaluation data sets and evaluation metrics. And for different types of tasks, I mean, you can have a language understanding task, you can have a text generation task, you can have a Q&A task. So depending upon which task you're using, which metric you are going to use. So we go very deep into, what kind of data sets are available for evaluation. We go through them and, really a very in-depth understanding of how do you evaluate an LLM. And then once that is done, the same thing. Every module has this area where we actually talk about all of these. I will show you one lab here. Okay. So when I click on this, you can see now I have the same thing. You get the API key from us, and we are going to load and split the document, update metadata, create embeddings and set up a vector store, create a prompt template, set up a rack chain, and extracting questions and ground truth. And then after that, evaluating the model performance, right? So if you look at this, in this case, we are doing faithfulness, relevancy, precision, recall of your metrics, and pretty much it. That's pretty much it. And then we on the last day of the bootcamp, the LLM 5-day bootcamp, we allocate about 4 hours. We give everyone some boilerplate code in a VM. We give you a VM. Not everyone is a web developer, so we give you a pre-built application, and we give you exercises. Let me show you. So we help you set up an application. And once you have, everyone gets their own application. And after that, if you look at this, once the basic stuff is done, you deploy it, you push it to GitHub. From GitHub, you push it to the cloud. You have your own application with your own URL running. And then we say, okay, why don't you connect a Wikipedia agent? And what else is there? Why don't you do a Python REPL LangChain agent, right? Why don't you build an archive LangChain agent? And then you see that we have these exercises. How do you add a memory, conversation memory in a basic chatbot? So these kind of things, we do it. And once again, when you leave, you understand really the end-to-end life cycle of an LLM application. You understand it in its entirety. And yeah, I mean, you're a better, if you're a good engineer, you're a good engineer who can now build LLM products. If you're a good product manager, you actually now, you're still the same person, whoever you are, but you're a technical product manager in building large language model application. You're a good PM, program manager, project manager in building LLM applications. And if you're a dev, then yeah, I mean, you can go and get started with building LLM applications. And I think that is it as far as my presentation goes. I will very quickly, I think I have taken more time than I should have taken today. This is the technology stack. We cover a lot of things in like different pieces in the ecosystem. We actually spend quite a bit of time. I have gone through the curriculum. I'm not going to actually spend more time here. And I'm going to, yeah, and just bring your laptop, by the way, right? So, I mean, so we have sometimes, hey, do I need to install anything? Do I need to have subscriptions? No, I mean, we have set it up in a manner that you hit the ground running. I mean, as long as you have a computer that has a web browser, that is it. Because we don't want to run into IT issues, my Mac and Python and Windows and Linux type issues. Everything else, we give it to you in browser-enabled labs. You will be getting a verified certificate. from the University of New Mexico. And as a result of this, many companies actually, since we are partnering with an accredited university, many companies, they actually cover the cost of our bootcamp as part of their tuition benefits. Last bootcamp or last one or two bootcamps, we have had people from Boeing and Apple and Salesforce. Of course, many companies, they pay for their employees. And I'm talking about many companies have this part of the benefits program, just like your health insurance, your dental, medical, vision. There's a tuition component of it. Check with your HR, and you may be eligible for attending it for free because, well, we are offering it in partnership with an accredited university. We have a great lineup of speakers. Not everyone is there every time, but these people have been there, and depending upon availability, I mean, we have people who come in. I can confirm the next time we will have. I'm there. I teach some of the boot camp. Luis is going to be there. Jerry has been there a few times, but I'm not sure. Next time, Adam is going to be there. Next time, John is going to be there. Sebastian is going to be there. Sam and Sage, they will be there. So it depends. I mean, who's available, and based on that availability, because these people are, I mean, they have their own things going, and the sessions have to fit in their schedule. What else? Yeah, these are some testimonials from our partners. I mean, we have had people from any company that matters on the planet. I mean, with our past boot camps and now, I mean, we have a lot of presence globally. So our next large language models bootcamp is happening from June 9th through 13th, 5 days straight, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. if you want to have that, that waterfall, right? So, if you want to really just be done with it in 1 week, this is your training. The Agentic AI Bootcamp is because many people asked, hey, I cannot come to Seattle and I cannot take 5 days off. It's not possible for me. So that's where we introduced this, more of an 8-week version, 3 hours a week, live class, and then with some homework. And then focus is more on agentic AI. So if you want a more spread out version of the large language models bootcamp with some more intense and deeper discussion on agents, then agentic AI bootcamp. If you're looking for more, I want to be done with it once, so I can just go and build things on my own, then large language models bootcamp is the one for you. Okay. So Jad, I know you have a question. Is the foundations course available online? Sorry, not sure if this was covered. I'm not sure, Jad, when you said foundations course. So in the LLM bootcamp, we cover everything, including the foundations. But in the Agentic AI Bootcamp, if someone does not have the background, we do make the foundations, some of the foundational work available that is needed to be able to successfully complete the Agentic AI Bootcamp. But if you're not sure, feel free to set up a time with us, and then we will actually guide you which bootcamp is the right bootcamp for you. Okay, with that, I think if there are any other questions, I am happy to take those. If not, I will see, hopefully I will see some of you at the bootcamp. Sounds good then. Thanks everyone for joining today, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of you.